Hi everyone, welcome to your November/December subscription box with the Indian BlockPrint Co. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm here to talk you through this month's projects box, which you hopefully have all received now. This is a lovely one that we did try 2 years ago, which was extremely popular and a really lovely activity to do for Christmas, which is why we've decided to do it again. So I'll talk you through everything that's in the box, what extra we're going to need, and then we'll get started. So you have your postcard in there, which hopefully is what you followed to get to this video. You've got your 2 printing blocks, so take these out of your cellophane bag. These are brand new, exclusive to the BlockPrint Club. You've got a lovely little trio of Christmas trees and a trio of stars. So not only are these blocks going to be really good for the project that we're going to be doing today, but also for your printing. The stars is good for all year round, and actually the trees could also be kind of autumnal trees as well. So hopefully you'll get lots of use out of these 2 printing blocks. So those are really lovely and really special. You've then got your 2 acrylic paints that we're going to be using later. So you've got a lovely bright primary red and a nice glorious gold. So these are what we're going to be using to paint the decorations with later. And my thought process on these 2 colours were, in the last subscription box, if you had that, which was the stationery printing, that had a green and a rich espresso in. So you could also use those 2 with the decorations later if you have any paint left, because they'll also lend themselves well to this project. You've then got 2 paper straws, which we'll be using soon enough. You've got a selection of gift tags. These you could print directly onto, or later I'll show you how you can attach your Christmas decorations to the tags. And then we've also got our block of air drying modelling clay. So we've gone for a white colour, so it paints really nicely. This is all air drying clay, so you just need to follow the instructions. Normally it has to be left for like 24 hours, and then we can paint it after that. So that's what's in our box. And then additional equipment that we're going to be using. I would suggest working on a kitchen table or something that's wipeable. Put something down if you need to. I've got a wooden board here. Now we could use a wooden chopping board, something like that. A plastic chopping board would also work, but be aware that plastic chopping boards might have a kind of texture to them, which will come out in the clay. So if you have a wooden one with no texture, that would be better. We're going to be using a rolling pin. I've got some detailed paintbrushes for later. A couple of sized cookie cutters. You can use any ones that you've got in the cupboard. You just want to use something to cut the clay out with. And then I've got a little dish here with some talcum powder in, so hopefully you've got some of that at home. So that's everything you're going to need for the project. You might benefit from using a knife to cut the clay, and you'll probably need some scissors to open the bag. But I'm going to get my table set up and ready for making, and we'll get started. So if you've joined us for other subscription box videos, you might notice that my setup here is a little bit different. Basically, it's because I have caught some sort of flu or cold at one of the various events that we've been to over the last couple of weeks of November. And unfortunately, I now am a little bit ill, and I've got to stay away from the office in order not to make everybody else poorly. So that is why I'm at home, so you may notice that my setup's a little bit different. I also am looking awful, which is why I am doing this all kind of overhead. So I'm sorry that I'm not facing you directly, but unfortunately, I'm really not feeling my best. So this winter bug has hit me hard. So what we're going to start with is a couple of other bits of equipment that I think will be good to use as well. Will be a bowl of water, and we'll use a sponge later. I've actually only got a sponge dabber at home, but that will be equally fine to use. So I've cut myself probably 1/6 of the clay off. You can always get more out, and I like to keep mine in the fridge once I've opened it. Now, one thing you're going to do is you can start to kind of work it. It's all a bit trial and error with clay, really, and it's just it's fun to have a play with. The only thing that you've got to remember is the more you work the clay, the drier it gets, and then it's at risk of cracking. So if you do overwork your clay, what you can always do is just get a bit of water and kind of mix that back in, and that will help kind of make your clay usable again. So you've just got to kind of feel it and see how it feels. But what we're going to do first of all is we're going to roll out the clay. So I'm going to take a little bit of my talcum powder and sprinkle it as you would if you were kind of baking, you know, just to flour your surface. And I'm also going to do the same with my rolling pin. Now at first, I'm just going to get a slab of clay that we can print into. Okay, so we're just going to roll it so it's flat. It's already sticking already, so you might need to add more talcum powder. If you don't like using talcum powder, you can always use flour. So see how you feel. Now, basically, the width that we want to go down to is the width of your straws. So what we do is we use these as leveling sticks. So you don't want to press too hard on them because they will start to flatten. But you can use them as a guide of how flat to roll your clay or how thick to roll your clay. So, you know, it's kind of like, you know, like you could use a pound coin instead or something, but we're going to use the spoons for something else later, but they work really well as leveling sticks. So I'm just going to keep moving the clay around. You can always add more talcum powder if you need to and it's getting sticky. I'm sure everyone has done plenty of baking here. So we're all used to, I mean, I'm not a very good baker, but I have, of course, rolled out clay and dough and things before. So once you can start to see that your straws are being pushed down, you probably know you're at the right level. So I'm just going to use my sticks as a guide and just make sure that whole slab is the right depth. Okay, so once we've done that, we've got this nice clean slab of clay, and I was going to say this is probably my neater side. I've also just spotted something in it. I've got a little bit of the packaging foil in there. Let's take that out. Okay, so now the rule is you always imprint first and then use your cookie cutters to cut out later. If you cut out first and then imprint, you're going to stretch the clay. So you always imprint first and then you cut out. But what you can do is with your cutter, you can always make a guide so you know where to print. So I'm going to go for a bigger one here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to very lightly push it, my cutter in, so I get a slight circle so I know where to print. Now I want to do some hanging decorations. That's what I'm going to show you guys how to make some lovely hanging decorations that we can put on the tree or put in a gift card, just to do something really nice with them. So what I'm going to do is I've lightly pushed that in so I can see where to print. So I want to put my block at the bottom of that circle, and then I'm going to leave room for a hole at the top, okay? Now what you're going to do is you're going to lightly push it in. Now this might take a couple of practices, trial and error to see how deep or, how much pressure to apply to the block. I'd say apply the same as when you print onto paper. So let's try that, and just side to side, up and down. Remember, you don't want to like properly indent it, you just want to get a nice print. And then we're going to pull it straight up. So there we go, that's come out lovely. I probably could have gone a little bit deeper with the top of the block because the stalks were quite thin, so they've gone in quite deep. Whereas next time I do it, I'll push the top down a bit harder and then I'll get a better all over print. But I'll show you what to do with this one for now. So I've done my imprint. So now I'm going to take my cookie cutter. Now you can always have a bit of talcum powder nearby, just to dust it around the edge. And I'm now going to look overhead of my imprint, and I'm going to cut it out. Okay, so I'm going to put that down just as you would if you were making mince pies or scones. Okay, and then I'm going to gently tease it out. So there we go, I've got my lovely disc with my 3 trees. Now to make a hole, what we're going to do is we're going to use our paper straw, and you pop it into the clay, you give it a twist, so you make sure you can feel it touch the surface you're working on, give it a twist, pull it up, and that will make you the perfect hole. So it's a really good way of doing holes. And then also what we're going to do to finish this off is we're going to smooth it out a little bit. So you can always wait till it's a little bit harder, but as I've got it in my hand, I'm going to do it now. So the edges might be a bit rough from where the cookie cutter cut the clay out. So what you can always do, just gives you a really nice finish, is dip your finger in the bowl of water. We do this when we're working with, real ceramic clay as well. You just run it around the edge. And if you want to, if you find it easier, you can always use a sponge, and you just clean up the edges. You've got to be very careful with the clay, very delicate. So wherever you're holding it, you're not applying any pressure, because otherwise you'll cause another imprint. But that is a lovely decoration. So that's our first one. So what I'm going to do is I'll do the same again with the stars and we'll see how it looks. So there I have made 3 of my tags. Now actually the last 2 that I've made compared to my first are so much better. I've been a lot more confident with the imprinting and I've been able to get a much deeper imprint, which is really lovely. Now you are probably going to have quite a large collection of blocks now, especially if you've been with the subscription box for a while. So you'll have lots of other designs that you can also use on the air drying clay. You can make different shapes and sizes. It's, you know, it's really easy to be adventurous with this and explore different patterns and different shapes. You can make some Christmas coasters and things by cutting the clay into a square. It's really easy to do. But with our leftover clay, what we're going to do now is we're going to, well, you don't want to waste it. So we're going to roll it back up. But like I said, the air drying clay can dry out. So what we're going to do is once you have used it, screw it back up into a ball and you want to work it a little bit, okay? So like you would when you're kind of like kneading dough or something, like you want to kind of move it around. And at this point, you can always add a bit more water if you need to, if it feels quite dry. And we're just going to work it out, get it all back into a really nice, like usable piece of clay. And you've just got to have a feel of it and to see how it feels. I mean, I don't know what's right and what's wrong, but when it feels a bit dry, then I always know to add a bit more water. And if it starts to crack or anything, then that's when you need to work the clay a little bit and add a bit more water to it. So what I'm going to do is, this is now feeling really good. So I'm going to put some more talcum powder back down and we're going to roll out the clay again and we will do something else. What I'm going to try on this one is I'm just going to try a bit more random printing. So I'm going to imprint all over and then I'm going to cut out my shapes. So these ones are a little bit more higgledy-piggledy, but actually those are really lovely. They come out really nice. I might just keep these as discs and stick them on a front of a card or something. So I won't put any holes in these, so you can decide what you do. I'll try and share a few ideas with you after the video of what you can make, because I think they're going to make really lovely gift tags. They're going to make nice, you could even make like little fridge magnets out of them if you wanted to. And we could use them as like gift tags, but we could also use them as gift tags because you'll be able to write on the back of the clay with, you know, with a Sharpie or something. So you could even make it as a gift tag for somebody and not just stick it on the paper gift tag. So there's loads you can do with it. They're really fun and very easy to be creative. And like I said, you've got a lot of blocks now, I'm absolutely sure of it. So you'll have loads of other designs that you can use. And you know, what you can also do is I'll roll out one more piece and we'll cut it, not using a cutter, but we'll cut it using a freestyle, and we'll see how that looks. So I have got only a little bit more clay here, so I'll take a bit more out of my pack and we'll do one more rolling. So one thing I wanted to try was actually cutting out a gift tag shape. So what we could do is we will use our gift tag and cut around that. So what I'll do is I will print and make a mark where the bottom of my tag will be, and I'm going to print, oh no, I indented it slightly. Let's just rub that over to hide that. That's the good thing about clay, it's very forgiving. Okay, so we're going to imprint into the bottom. Again, making sure I'm pushing quite hard on the top to make sure I really get the tree definition. You can actually see how deep it's going in, and the blocks are carved quite deeply, so you can get a good imprint. So there we go. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my gift tag over the top, and we're going to cut around it, and we're going to get a bit of a freestyle shape. So I'm just using a kitchen knife. Like I said, this is just air drying clay, so it's very easy to work with. It won't ruin any of your materials, and we're just working with talcum powder or flour. So everything, you know, you can just use equipment from your kitchen. And I'm just being careful as I'm cutting this, but I'm going to cut it in the shape of my tag. And actually that could make a really, really nice decoration. I've been looking on Pinterest and things, and I've seen that people have made like little tags and things to go on their napkins for the Christmas table. So really easy to do lots with them. So there we go. I haven't cut it quite straight, so let's take a little bit off the side. And then what we can do is we can then adjust it if it needs it. So I might actually make these bits a bit longer. Just have a play around with it and see how you want to do it. And then I'm going to put my circle in the top with my straw. And then again, just using your finger to smooth the edges, or your sponge. And just remember to hold it really lightly. They're quite, not fragile, but it's quite easy to end up imprinting your fingers into them or something. So we've got that. So what I would suggest doing is, if I was you, the clay can keep. So some of the packs have a resealing tag on the back, and others are them that you can just wrap up. But what I like to do with mine is I actually sometimes wrap it up in cling film and put it in the fridge. And I actually just wrap it up with a wet flannel. So I wrap it with a wet flannel and then wrap it all in cling film. And that keeps it a bit damp. And then that will keep for weeks in your fridge. So what you could do is you could make your first selection of tags, and then we'll paint them. And then you get an idea of what you like. And then you can make some more if you want to, or you can use the clay for something else. So I think that can be quite a nice way to do it. So I would suggest, you know, using 1/3, 1/4 of your clay, depending on how many tags you're making, or even half of the clay. And then you can always go back. So any excess you've got, we'll just put back in the pack. And then, like I said, I'll wrap this up and put it in the fridge. Just make sure it's sealed. Now with these items, we're going to leave them for about 24 hours to dry, and then we can paint them. So what I'm going to do is you can either just leave them on your chopping board out in the open. If you have anything light, like I've got this wooden board, you could always use a plastic chopping board if it's light. You can always put it over the top, which will stop them bending when they dry. But obviously you don't want anything too heavy that's going to flatten them. So just something light, but you can just leave them on your chopping board to dry about 24 hours. And then when we come back, we will paint them. Welcome back everybody. So we're now ready for the painting part. So you can either wait 24 hours for your clay to dry, or even longer than that if you want to leave it longer. I actually wanted to speed mine up because I wanted to paint them in the same day. So there's mixed reviews online, but I actually put mine in the oven at 100 degrees for about 40 minutes. I turned them over halfway through, and that has solidified them, so you can hear them now. They're very hard and a lot more hard wearing. I can, move them around and everything, and I don't have to worry about, denting them or anything. So these are now ready for painting. So it depends on what your time scale is like. If you're ready to start painting them the same day you make them, you can try the same trick as me. There's always a risk that they might break in the oven, depending on how thick and thin they are and how much you've worked the clay, if you've re-rolled it many times. But if it's like mine have come out absolutely fine, and they're now ready for painting. So for this section, what you're going to need is your detailed painting brushes. I'm only using very thin ones. You're going to need your 2 acrylic paints. So we've got golden, red, but also if you've got any other colours from the last subscription box, like I said before, you had the rich espresso and the green. So if you've got any of those left over, they'll be really good for the trees as well. And also that acorn block, pine cone will be absolutely lovely printed into clay. So make sure you try those as well. And other than that, I've got some water still and a sponge. And then what we suggest you seal them with after is a sort of spray varnish. So I'll share that with you a little bit later on. But there's a couple of different ways to paint them. I like to do a detailed infill, which is what we call it. So for example, it is easier the deeper that they are imprinted. So I think that does help when you are imprinting to make sure you're getting quite a deep print. And you'll see after you've painted the first few. But it's very easy to paint them. You just find a position that works for you. So for me, the trees work better upside down. And I'm not going to come out onto the raised section. I'm only painting the imprint. And you just kind of let your paintbrush fill the space, just very slowly. Now you might need more than one coat. It depends how much paint you put on in one go. But it's very therapeutic actually painting these. They paint so lovely. Actually, the paint, we're using an acrylic paint. That's what I would suggest using when you're painting air drying clay. But it really goes on so easily. Like, you might think that the clay is a hard surface to paint, but it's actually very smooth. You'll see when the air drying clay dries, I find it dries almost a bit silky, and it gives you a really lovely surface for working on. So you can just very slowly build up the paint within the imprint. And like I said, this is what we call an imprint, a detailed infill, a painted infill, because we're just infilling the paint. And you can be as creative as you want here. I'm just kind of doing one colour. You could even add like details of gold on after. You could add little spots of gold. You could paint or write somebody's name. But you can see it's really easy to do that with your paintbrush. It takes a little bit of time. But I just use my brush and let it kind of flow into the design, especially for the flick of the trees. I just push the brush gently in there, and that puts the paint in. One good thing about this is if you do make any mistakes, you probably can, if it's still wet, you probably can wash it off under the sink. Might leave a bit of residue of paint, but I'm pretty sure you'd still be able to. So what I might do actually for this one, might use the end of my other paintbrush and add some little gold spots around. So this is one of my gift tags. And you can be very creative with them. Really great projects to do with children as well, because it's really fun. It doesn't matter if you make a bit of mess or they go wrong. You can always re-roll out the clay. One more spot at the top. So that's a lovely one. And these are my mixed ones that I've done earlier. So these are a little bit random, but I've also infilled those in as well, and the stars. And then this was another one I did earlier with the detailed infill. And my idea for this is that I attach it to a gift tag. So maybe I'd put it on someone's present or put it in a card. But what you can do is I'm just using the string from the gift tag that's in the box, and you can just thread that through. So you could either have it hanging down there, you could even secure it with a little bit of double-sided sticky tape. But I think that looks really lovely. I could pull it to the top if I want. And I could write somebody's name there, and then that just gives like a gift tag, but also a Christmas decoration that they can hang up. So that's the trees in gold, which looks really lovely. So you could do that. You could also print the gift tag behind, but I think that's really nice. I think for something like this, what I might do is get a square card, and using a little foam sticky pad or something, I might stick it onto the card so it's like a detailed decoration. That's nice. Now, one other way that we can do it is if you want to do a slight background colour. So what I've done here is I will use my sponge, dip it in some water, and what you want to do is get a very watered down paint mixture. And then what you can kind of do is you can almost like wipe or sponge it on like that. Just a very light background layer. So that's only gone onto the top. I'm just going to use a cloth to get any excess water, and that just gives you a light background colour. So that's just what we call a colour wash. And then what you can do is you can then infill into that. So that just gives you a bit more detail. Now I'm going to share with you as well. We did this, because I said to you we did this project 2 years ago as well. So we've also got the video from then, which might give you some other ideas as well. So I'll share that with you so that you've got both videos and you can then see what you like to do. But there's so many different kind of decorating and printing, you know, pattern ideas that you could do. But these are just very fun, very simple. It's lovely to use another medium, and it's great to find something else you can use your printing blocks into. I was thinking actually when I was printing into the clay, you know, even if you were making pastry or something this year, you could even use the printing blocks to, you know, print into that or something. Or if you're making cookies or something, as long as you give them a good wash first, you'd be able to use them. So that's quite a cool idea. So that one, and then I might add the red spots around the outside, just for a bit of fun. I like just adding a bit more detail to the design. But you can have a play around with what you like, and then you're just going to let them dry. And I mean, you could even leave them plain if you want, like they still look really lovely like this. If you like more of a rustic look, you could just leave them plain, non-painted, and they'd look really pretty like that. But after you have painted them and they're dry, I would suggest sealing them. So we use a spray varnish, which is like a lacquer. You just spray it on once the paint has dried. I just do one layer, leave them 10 minutes, do the other side, and then do another coat again. Or you could even paint them with like a PVA, as long as it dries clear. Just something that seals them. It will make them a little bit more hard wearing, and that will fix them and mean that they're a little bit more kind of durable, especially if you're giving them as a gift, and they'll feel a bit shiny, so they won't feel dusty like the natural clay does. So hopefully that's given you a good few ideas of what you can do with your subscription box for this month. I hope you really enjoy making your Christmas decorations and some lovely little gift tags and presents for people. It's a lovely way to use your printing blocks, and I hope you have fun playing with this new medium. Thank you so much for watching, and have a wonderful Christmas.